Section 2, page 9. I was 19, still stuck in high school, and I wasn't living at home. I had unlimited freedom, no supervision whatsoever. I had spending money, I had a fast car, and I had a fake ID. My entire year was a grand balancing act between doing what I wanted to do and doing what I should, being who I was while inventing who I wanted to be. A writer was something important to say. So he knows early on that he really wants to be a writer. During my junior year, my parents had moved the family from Fort Lauderdale, Florida to San Juan, Puerto Rico. My dad, who had a lifelong habit of switching jobs almost every year, took a position as a construction superintendent rebuilding a beachfront hotel and casino. Now, here's something to consider is he's going to talk about how there was never really roots set down and how there was always transition. So I wonder if that had to do with why Jack never really felt a sense of belonging anywhere. My mom and my older sisters were all for it. My younger brother was ready to live like a surfer boy. My younger brothers were ready to live like surfer boys, and it sounded like a big party to me. I turned in my books, packed up my bags, and said farewell to my new friends and teachers at Sunrise High School without shedding a tear. Since I had already gone to 9 different schools, I was skilled at being a professional acquaintance. That's an interesting statement. I didn't have a problem with saying goodbye to old friends and walking away forever. On the plane down to Puerto Rico, I figured I'd never see them again, and I'm sure they thought the same of me. New friends were always around the corner. If you don't think you're ever going to see people again, your consequences aren't permanent either, and so then how you treat other people probably is less impactful for a person. I didn't speak Spanish, so I couldn't go to the public schools in San Juan, and since my parents didn't have the money for private school, we decided it'd be best for me to just go to work. My dad fixed me up with an electrical subcontractor on his construction project, and right away I found myself wiring hotel rooms. Now that seemed scary. The money was good. Half of the existing hotel was shut down while we added 2 new floors. A lot of the workers were from the States, and one of the perks of the job was that they were given hotel rooms to live in. I was too. This was ideal. I had privacy. I had my own TV. I even had a maid service. I didn't have to make a bed or pick up a wet towel off of the floor for half of a year. Plus, my parents lived in an apartment a block away. Each evening after I showered in my hotel room, I would carry my dirty laundry down the street where I'd join the family for dinner. And afterwards, I would go back to the hotel with clean laundry and play cards with the other electrical workers who lived down the hall. They were nice, older guys who flew in from Miami every week to make fast money working double shifts. They let me drink a little, but not too much, and they let me loose a little, but not too much. On the weekends, they'd fly home and I'd drink a little too much and wander around the tourist zones. I'd go to the casinos at El San Juan and Americana. I'd imagine I was James Bond meeting beautiful older women at the roulette tables and walking arm in arm up to their rooms where something dangerously exotic might happen. But the only arm I managed to warm up was a slot machine. I love playing them. The flashing lights and the sounds of the gears spinning and the wild thrills of the jingling coins pouring into the metal pay tray and waitresses dressed in skimpy outfits bringing me free drinks for good tips was a blast. Now that's a great example of imagery. And if I lost too much, I'd hop up and walk for an hour down the beach and look at the stars and listen to the surf and inhale the whole world's briny smell rising from the ocean I loved. Then it never felt as if I had lost. And once I had won so much, I stood on the beach in the moonlight and skipped silver quarters across the calm water as little waves pawed the shore. But after a while, I began to think of school again. Besides, I knew nothing about electricity and nearly electrocuted myself several times. Yeah, that's not a job you just pick up. After I'd melted my 3rd pair of Klein side cutters and scorched a number of body parts while working on live wires, I admitted that electrical work was not in my future, and I made the decision to get my high school diploma. After 6 months on the job, I had saved enough money to afford private school. But I couldn't get in. My grades had always been mediocre, and given that I had never finished 11th grade, the private schools in San Juan wouldn't accept me as a senior. The thought of repeating 11th grade was too depressing, so I talked to my parents and they arranged for me to return to my cast-off school back in Florida and live with a family who had an extra room. My parents thought this was the best opportunity for me. I had my savings and had never been much trouble, as they must have reasoned it was an opportunity for me to spread my wings and make something of myself. I packed my bags, said goodbye to my family, and returned to Fort Lauderdale. When I re-enrolled as a senior at Sunrise High, no one asked about the second half of my junior year, and I didn't volunteer any information. It turned out that people my dad arranged for me to live with, the Bacon family, were desperate for extra cash. My dad had met Fred Bacon while at the Elks Club benefit to help needy kids, and the Bacons had purchased a new house with a swimming pool, had 2 new cars, and were raising 2 school kids, all on an income selling mail-order prosthetic limbs out of their garage, which looked like a morgue of plastic parts. Mr. and Mrs. Bacon had a limb disabilities themselves. He was missing an arm and she was without a left foot, and so were well suited for their business. "Can't make a dime," Mr. Bacon said one night after beers. He yanked off his flexible rubber arm and waved it overhead like a giant bug antenna. "All these old people come down here with prosthetics that look like something whittled out of a baseball bat. You'd think they want something snazzy looking, but no, they're just happy to be alive. In the meantime, we're starving." So my rental money was welcome. Plus, with my new grocery store job at Winn-Dixie, I was always bringing home bags full of dented cans, crushed boxes of cereal, half-open packages of dried beans and rice, and frozen food with freezer burn. The Bacon family didn't mind the misfit food, but soon they found out I was a great misfit. It took them about 6 weeks to realize I was a live-in party crasher. After having my own hotel room in San Juan, I wasn't ready to live with other people. I'd go out drinking with my friend Will Doyle, and afterwards, I'd come home late and play my stereo full volume, smell up the house with cigarette smoke, and make long-distance phone calls on the Bacon's bill. I kept drinking more and more until I discovered I could drink a lot of beer. Nearly a case of it in one sitting. Unfortunately, I was also in the process of discovering I had no tolerance for that much alcohol, and I always became blind drunk and ferociously ill, spending almost every night loudly heaving my guts out in the toilet while begging God for mercy. I was a mess. After one especially robust night of drinking with Will, I stumbled home, crawled up the sidewalk, stabbed my keys in the front door, let myself in, and power barked all over the living room. After I sloshed blindly through the mess on all fours, I splattered the bathroom, my bedroom again, until I passed out in the bathroom, my arms draped around the toilet and my head on the cool rim of the bowl. When I came to the next afternoon after the carpet cleaners had finished their work, I was summoned into the kitchen, which had been closed off with plastic sheeting and heavily sprayed with institutional strength air freshener. I was promptly informed that I had to pack my bags and be out of their lives in an hour. Mr. Bacon tapped on the face of his watch with his flexible prosthetic finger to show that he meant business. I didn't debate their judgment of me as an immature, spoiled brat who needed major butt kicking in order to straighten up. I didn't have time to defend myself, and suddenly I felt sick all over again. "Excuse me," I belched, and quickly covered my mouth with both hands, nodded my agreement to their assessment of my character, and ran down the hall to the bathroom. Mr. Bacon limped behind me, yelling, "Don't you dare soil my carpet again." I didn't, but I threw up something so harshly acidic it left me with a canker sore on the side of my mouth. As I stumbled out of the house, Mr. Bacon hollered out one final warning. "Keep this up and you'll fall flat on your ass." I spit up on the grass. I spent the night in my car parked next to the dumpster behind the grocery store, and for a short while I felt sorry for myself, and then figured my drinking was a sign that I was living in the wrong place with the wrong sort of people. There was no promise of anything in the Bacon family. The wife kept the kids in front of the TV all day long while she vacantly dozed across the couch. If they acted up, she'd swing at them with her cane. The husband was constantly worried about money and kept reminding me not to use too much electricity. He was so cheap he turned the hot water heater down to tepid. Even I knew enough to understand what Buddha meant when he said, "Always walk the road of happiness to prosperity." They seemed miserable and loveless. Nothing gave them pleasure because they were unable to receive it. And there I was, full of promise and hope and desire for real love and real events to shape and change my life. I knew I was free to change myself, free to feel the entire impact of what I was doing, and I wanted to feel it all. Being in that house was spoiling the hope of what life should offer. They were trapped and tapped out of ideas and cash and just waiting to collapse, and I was glad I wouldn't be around to watch it all happen. Which leads me to the question of, the essential question of when we were doing the anticipation guide is it ever okay to leave, or is it ever a good idea to leave? And in this case, yes. Still, I knew something had to be wrong with me too. You just didn't end up homeless, hungover, sleeping in your car with all of your worldly possessions because you had control of your life. I had lost control, temporarily, but I'd get it back. I figured I always did. My family had highs and lows, made money and lost what money can buy, had good days and bad days, and that were ground out like cigarette butts. So I was used to hitting the bottom. Now I was waiting for the bounce. By the time I fell asleep across my suitcase, I only felt sorry for the bacon kids. In the morning, I woke up feeling pasty, and my skin was like marzipan. I had slept with the windows rolled up, and all the drinking had run me down. I bought a newspaper and coffee and looked through the rooms to rent section. I spotted a promising ad and drove over to an address on North Boulevard. It was the old motel whose sun-faded signly read the King's Court, and the sign was wemmed with broken bulbs that looked like rotten teeth. I rang the office buzzer, and an old woman with brown, wrinkled skin like a well-used pirate map opened the door and flickered a cigarette butt over my head. "Does the name Davy Crockett mean anything to you?" she asked. "Yeah, he was the king from the wild frontier," I said, quoting the theme from the song of the TV show. "Well, he was the king of the frontier," she said, then pointed at her chest, added, "and I'm the queen of the King's Court. I'm Davy Crockett the Fourth, his great-great-granddaughter." "Great," I said, thinking she looked old enough to be his daughter, but I liked her right off because she was opposite of what I had just left. "Now, what can I do for you?" she asked. "I need a room," I said. "Cash or welfare check?" "Cash." "Good. Pay in advance and you'll get a 10% discount." I paid, and Davy's kin gave me a key to the room 3. "It's a lucky room," she informed me. "To my knowledge, nobody died here." "I'll try to keep it that way," I replied, and turned to go. "One more thing," she growled. "Don't make any trouble or I have to kick your tail out of here with Davy's moccasins." I stared at her feet. Her beaded buckskins looked real to me. "And I got his gun," she informed me. "Old Bessie." "Not to worry," I said, smiling. "Honest, I'm a good kid." I moved my car around to the parking space with the big 3 painted on it. I unlocked the shiny brown door, and in a glance, saw it all. A ragtag furnished room with tiny bathroom and a shallow closet. A low-slung, unmade bed took the middle of the room. Musty-smelling sheets were folded over an exhausted pillow. It was hot. There was no air conditioning. Against a filthy wall was a dresser with a cheap lamp on it and a cheaper fan. I turned the fan on, unpacked my belongings. I hung my shirts and pants on hangers. I placed my toiletries on a glass shelf above the sink. I pushed back the yellow curtain, and the stale air trapped the smell like a mildew lemon. Put my shampoo on the edge of the tub. The wall ties were yellow, and the floors were yellow. I looked in the mirror. I was yellow. It was the color that did not look good on me. And now notice that is the color of the book.